Is Kevin Jennings a dark horse to win the Heisman? Well, he is, according to this one unlikely talking head.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Man, let's get it. Welcome to another week of Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every single day. As always, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Our episode today is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase at Gametime. Coming up on the show today, as we kick off a new week, Pro Football Focus College laid out their preview for SMU and debated on whether or not the Mustangs can go over that 8.5 win threshold that FanDuel has them at right now. We'll talk about that in the second segment. We will also talk about some quotes from fall practice from defensive end Cam Robertson, who is transitioning into a major leadership role on a revamped front seven. All that coming up here shortly. My name is Grayson Singleton. Glad you're with me. As always, you can find me on X or Twitter at Gray_Singleton2 is where you can interact with me. And also be sure to subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment as well. I like to go back through and I will respond to as many comments as I can get to. So make sure you do that as well so we can continue to grow this community. Okay, let's get right to the content right here. Kevin Jennings. Can he win the Heisman? Can he improve so much so that he's in that illustrious conversation? Well, this is an article from Athlon Sports and Paul Feinbaum. Remember him who was beefing momentarily with Rhett Lashley? Well, this is what he had to say about Kevin Jennings. It's legitimate. He's a great player. Talking to Rhett Lashley, he was pretty upbeat on the season. I think he's going to be a Heisman finalist. I think to be a Heisman finalist, you have to have great numbers. You have to have big wins. He'll have a chance to have some good wins. Here is because I've broken down Kevin Jennings. I've broken down how he could improve, how much I think he will improve, and whatnot. Here's my criteria for a Heisman Trophy winner. And then I'm going to let you determine whether or not Kevin Jennings can fit into that. Criteria number one, team success. Hands down, I don't want a Heisman contender on a team who won 7 regular season games. 7-5, you're just above mediocre. And if your team is like that, you probably had something to do with that too. You probably weren't good enough to be in that category because you couldn't elevate your team. Now, there is a couple of loopholes here, as if like a quarterback throws for 4,700 yards, but the defense was an abomination, akin to Joe Burrow with the Bengals last year. Okay, maybe if you put up those kind of ungodly numbers, I'll consider it. But the baseline to me is your team has to be winning. Your team has to get to 8 wins, 9 wins, especially with the expanded college football playoff. I would like your team to be in the 12-team field if I'm going to consider you for a Heisman Trophy. At minimum, you need to make your conference's championship. That, to me, puts you in Heisman category. So, number one is team success. Your team's got to be good. Number two is raw numbers. You got to have the numbers. Now, here were Kevin Jennings' numbers from a season ago. 58% complete, that was 2023. 65% completion percentage. 3,245 yards, 23 touchdowns, 11 picks, and then 354 yards on the ground and 5 rushing touchdowns. Pretty good. That's a pretty good season to go off of. And if we project the improvement that we think he can make, let's just put him at 3,850 yards conservatively, because he's going to start, presumably, barring injury and poor play, all of the games. So let's put him conservatively at 3,800 passing yards. Let's put him at a little under 600 rushing yards. So now we're at about 4,400 total yards of offense accounted by the quarterback. 23 touchdowns. Let's bump that up to, let's say, 27. Because if all things go to plan, he's not going to play the entire game against East Texas A&M. He's not going to play the entire game against Missouri State. So let's say 27. And let's say the rushing touchdowns goes up to 7 or 8. So now we've got 34, 35 total touchdowns in account with the 4,400 yards accounted for. If we project that improvement, okay, now we're off to a really good start. But you got to have numbers. You got to put up the stats that grab people's eyes. And I think if we project that sort of improvement, those are numbers that can get you into the conversation. Hands down. No doubt. Especially if it combines with point number 1, which is your team's success. Because with those kind of numbers, Kevin Jennings would be driving SMU to team success. And then criterion number 3. So we have team success, we have numbers, and we have to have moments, a signature performance. I know people use the cliche, your Heisman moment. Okay, cool. And I think here's where this plays into Kevin Jennings' favor if he wants to win the Heisman Trophy. They've got a home game against Clemson, or a home game against Miami, a home game against Louisville, and a road game against Clemson. Those are 3 marquee games, I think, that are going to give Jennings an opportunity to make a statement. Because you have to make a statement. Now, how many statements do you have to make? We don't know. That just varies year to year. Depends on, does Jeremiah Smith have a bunch of one-handed catchings like he did last year? Does Cade Klubnik light the world on fire? Arch Manning, what does he do? John Mateer, Garrett Nussmeier, some of those dudes. The Love kid, the running back from Notre Dame, does he have a breakout campaign? So there's no floor or baseline of injury as to how many moments you have to have, but you have to have signature statements, and you're gonna have 3: Miami, Louisville at home, Clemson on the road. And like I think, if you win all of those games save 1, if you split Clemson and Miami and you win the rest of your ACC games, you're going to have another chance to do that in the ACC championship game. So Kevin Jennings is going to have opportunities aplenty to make statements and create more opportunities for himself to make statements. So those are my 3 criteria for the Heisman Trophy: team success, numbers, and moments and signature performances. So how do I think this is going to stack up? I do think SMU is going to have number 1 down pat. I think SMU is going to go over that 8.5. I think SMU will win 9 games. And depending on what they do in the conference slate, they could very well be back in the ACC championship game. So I'm putting a check mark on team success. Numbers, I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure how gaudy the numbers are going to look. You've got a lot of turnover at wide receiver, even though you've got guys that have been in the program getting elevated. RJ Maryland does come back at tight end. That's good. You've got 2 really good tight ends now with him and Hibner. The backfield still has to iron itself out, but the offensive line we think is going to be pretty good with Logan Parr and PJ Williams, Joshua Bates if he cracks the top 5, and the crew. The defense, we'll see what happens, but that seems like a defense that's going to be built from the secondary up as they retool and have a lot of turnover on the front 7, really. So the numbers, I don't know if they're going to be as gaudy, but they could be. So I'm gonna say a maybe on this one. The moments is the one that hangs in the balance, and he's going to have ample opportunity to do it. And if he nails the moments and the team is really good, I think you don't have to have the highest of numbers. You still have to have good numbers. But if the team's really good and you're beating Clemson and you win the ACC championship game, heading into the college football playoff likely as a top 5-4 seed, that's good enough to me to at least get you to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony as a finalist. So I think it's possible. Would I bet my money on it right now? Not right now. I would not. But I'm going to let you determine. Those are my criteria: team success, numbers, moments. Does Kevin Jennings win a Heisman, or is he a finalist this year? Coming up next here on Locked On SMU, we are going to go to our friends at Pro Football Focus. I love these dudes. What do they have to say about SMU? It might contradict what they say originally for what they say at the end. We'll talk about it next. Here, stay here. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with your friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Think about the most weird, ridiculous shot you've ever seen or tried on the course. Did it go well? Did it not? But you're going to need some little bit of energy and some mental sharpness to make sure that you at least give yourself a chance, right? Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use our code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive $20, 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today at 5hourenergy.com. Back here on Locked On SMU with Grayson Singleton. I'm glad you are with me. Thanks for taking part of your day to watch this show. Remember, subscribe to this YouTube page. Remember to click the notification bar so you can get notified of our new content that comes out at noon every single day. The podcast also hits Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts at 8 a.m. Central Time. Pro Football Focus did their preview over the weekend on SMU in the 2025 season. And I've got a lot of grades and I've got a lot of numbers here from PFF that should make you feel really excited. We just talked about Kevin Jennings. You want to know why you could expect Kevin Jennings to improve and maybe get into those Heisman conversations? Because Kevin Jennings actually did a lot of things well. Kevin Jennings, when throwing into single coverage. Now, why is this important? Rhett Lashlee likes to scheme up ways in his offense to get his receivers one-on-one. It is a staple of the SMU offensive attack. So you have to be good throwing the ball into single coverage. Throwing into single coverage, Kevin Jennings had the 4th highest grade of all quarterbacks in the country. Sounds pretty good. Okay, but what if the pocket's just not perfect for him? What if he's forced to move around and make throws? Jennings had a 71.4 grade when moved off of his spot. That is tied with none other than Cade Klubnik at Clemson for the highest grade in the country. So there's a marriage here between skill and aptitude and system and schematics. Kevin Jennings is really good at throwing to receivers who are one-on-one. Rhett Lashlee is making sure that that his receivers get one-on-one. It's a perfect combination. Now, where does Kevin Jennings fall off? And this is where you're going to want to see the improvement. And this is where I think you can. Less than 55% of Kevin Jennings' passes last year were charted as accurate by Pro Football Focus. I'll say it again. Less than 55% of his passes were considered accurate by Pro Football Focus. That's a low number. Less than 55%, not good. Not good. That's got to go up. But what the PFF guys pointed out is something that I've talked about a couple of weeks ago. There's fundamental things in Kevin Jennings' game that I have always thought are holding him back. Now, last year was his first year as a starter, so this is no excoriation of him. He hasn't played enough football, I think. I don't think. But his footwork was a little rough last year. He gets antsy in the pocket. sometimes bails the pocket a little bit early. And because of that, you get too jittery and your throws go off target. That's a very common thing of quarterbacks entering the NFL is that with your footwork's off, then that throws all your mechanics off and balls start sailing on you. You dirt a couple balls. They go wide every which way. If he can settle his feet, he starts to hit more of those throws that he has to be more precise with. But here's what we know about Kevin Jennings right now. Right now, based on the film that he put on display last year and the numbers as well, he's good at hitting the layups. He can hit the layups, and he can give his receiver a chance to go get it. Now, Jordan Hudson and guys like Dylan Goffney, Romello Brinson, they've got to be good contested ball catchers. But the return of R.J. Maryland, to me, and the PFF guys pointed this out as well, the return of R.J. Maryland is really beneficial for Jennings' skill set because you're not going to double a tight end. That never happens, especially in college. So if he can own the middle of the field in single coverage, that plays right into Kevin Jennings' strength, particularly once he learns how to process coverages. The other thing PFF pointed out that really caught my attention was the remake of the SMU defense. And the reason why this caught my attention is because the front seven has a ton of turnover. Top two tacklers gone. Top two pass rushers from last year gone. They lost like 15 sacks with those two guys. So you've got guys like Isaiah Smith stepping up and Cam Robertson, who we'll talk about in the last segment, stepping up. But in the back end of this SMU defense is Isaiah Wakobia and Ahmad Moses. Both are top 12 in the PFF safety rankings. They are the second best safety duo, according to PFF, in the country. Only Bray and Sabb at Alabama are higher. And those two are pretty damn good. So being second to those two is not a slight whatsoever. And if Wakobia and Moses play up to their potential, we talked about them last year in terms of their grades among returning ACC safeties. They were 1 and 3, respectively. Wakobia at 1, Moses at 3. But if those two, with all their versatility and all their ways to create turnovers and all their ways that they are growing as leaders, especially Wakobia, if those dudes are the head honchos of this defense, I feel really good. If those two are garnering a bunch of noise for SMU, I feel really good. And it could buy that front seven just a little bit of time. Now, here's the thing with the front seven. They're going to have to be stout fast because I think teams like Baylor, teams like TCU, both with bigger quarterbacks who can run the ball a little bit, are going to want to run the football against this really new defensive front seven. And you're going to have a new signal caller, whether that's Zakai Barker, Alex Kilgore, or hell, maybe Isaiah Wakobia. I don't know. But there's a lot of unknown on the front seven. So teams are going to try to expose that, or at least make SMU prove that our front seven is still pretty solid. So if Moses and Wakobia can head up a secondary that can hold its own, that can buy that front seven a little bit of time to round into form. But at the back end of all this, after all that good stuff, Wakobia and Moses being the second best safety duo in the country, Kevin Jennings throwing up some pretty good grades. One of the guys on that podcast, the Pro Football Focus College podcast, said, I got to take the under on the 8.5 wins. Real talk. And I don't see it. Barring injury, I don't see it. Because I see 2 wins against the Big 12 opponents, Baylor and TCU. They're pretty solid football teams, but not great. I see a win over Louisville. I see potentially a win over Miami, but even just the ones that you're scraping the barrel with, Miami and Clemson. Let's just say they both don't go your way. That's only 2 losses. You're 10-2 at that point. Now, obviously, football can happen, but I see 2 losses, 3 on this schedule max. I would be shocked if there were more than 3 losses on this schedule. They got a tougher schedule, but I see 9-3 at the minimum. I'm going to continue to smash that over. Even though they've got a lot of turnover at some pretty key positions, but they got leadership and they got dudes, studs that are coming back as well. So you can't overlook that. So Pro Football Focus, I thought, had some excellent numbers, but man, if I keep hearing this, I hear Kevin Jennings is already good at throwing into single coverage. I hear Kevin Jennings is already good at throwing under duress. And I think he gets better with his mechanics that fixes the accuracy. And I get a top safety duo in the country. I got 9 wins, man. I'd be hard-pressed to not have 9 wins. One more segment to go. Cam Robertson is sliding into a new leadership role. We're going to talk about what he had to say at the end of one of the fall camp practices over the weekend next when we round out Locked On SMU on a Monday. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose that spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of getting tickets to get into the building. But that's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, and always guaranteed. Let's wrap up Locked On SMU on a Monday with Cam Robertson. Media caught up with him after one of the practices over the weekend, and he dropped some pretty cool nuggets for us that should get you excited about the turnaround of the defensive line that we just talked about, albeit vaguely, in the last segment. So front 4, front 7 is going through some turnover. Cam Robertson, one of the guys who is going to come into a leadership role. Now, if you want to know, okay, how was Cam Robertson last year? I'll pull up the stats for you. About 2.5 sacks last year for Cam Robertson. 2.5 sacks, 31 tackles, and 1 fumble recovery. So cool, but not great. He was a rotational defensive end. He also is coming back on the defensive line, Smith, who registered 32 tackles, 6.5 sacks. He's the leading returning sack artist for SMU. But here's what Cam Robertson had to say first about playing behind Elijah Roberts, a dude who is now in an NFL training camp. He said, quote, just seeing how he started games being up on the offensive lineman, I'm really trying to take a big leap and keep stacking days the way Elijah did. First thing I noticed there, how he started games. Elijah Roberts was a dog from the jump. And that is quite a characteristic to try to mimic. Because if you could set the tone early, a lot of football, a lot of sports really, especially the combat, I call it combat sports, they're not really, but the hand-to-hand sports, basketball, football, soccer, where you're running up against people. Baseball doesn't fall into this category. Sorry, baseball fans. I love baseball, but it doesn't. A lot of those games are dictated by who sets the tone early. And I love that rubbed off on Cam Robertson because he said, I'm going to be in him from the first play from scrimmage. And Elijah Roberts was like that. And I love Cam's assertiveness to want to copy that as well. But the main thing about Cam Robertson, though, is that Cam is going to have to be a leader now. Because one guy that's going to get a lot of rotational snaps is going to be DJ Warner, who's a sophomore from Phoenix, Arizona. He comes over from Kansas, where he didn't really get a whole lot of run with the Jayhawks last year. So he's a dude that's got a lot of promise, I think. But Robertson's going to be the elder statesman. As a matter of fact, Robertson spoke on DJ Warner. He said, quote, I've never seen someone's get off so fast. Really twitchy, natural instinct for getting on the quarterback. And I think between Cam Robertson and DJ Warner and Isaiah Smith, who we just talked about, that's 3 dudes that can get after the passer pretty well. Joffrey Harvey is no longer there. Elijah Roberts no longer there. That's 15 sacks between those two. And then Jared Harrison Hunt added 6.5 himself. So they're losing a ton. But with Cam Robertson and Isaiah Smith returning, who Robertson believes Isaiah Smith can get double-digit sacks this year. That's 3.5 more than what he had in 2024. But he believes that. They also have a competition to see who can get the most sacks. And competition breeds performance. Man, if you are competing and you are in competition, that will breed results. I love that. If they truly are saying, you think I can get 10? All right, cool. I'm going to get 11. Oh, you think I can get 6? Let me get 8 here. That's how you keep the factory rolling. That's how you keep chugging out that output. Because you're losing guys, but you got more dudes that are here ready to compete. And I like where Cam Robertson's head's at. I like how he's trying to be a dog like Elijah Roberts from the get-go. I love that there's competition between him and Isaiah Smith. And I love what DJ Warner's going to bring. Because DJ Warner wants to crack a rotation. He didn't see that he could crack a rotation at Big 12 Kansas. But he thinks he can do it here. And he's already been in college 1 year. So this isn't a guy who's just coming out of high school that we're raving about. This is a dude who's been and got a couple of snaps, albeit not a whole lot, at the P4 level. I like what he could bring. I really like what he could bring, especially if his get off is as lightning quick as Cam Robertson says it is. We might be in for something pretty special on this defensive line. Again, a lot of unknown, which is why people are a little bit hairy on SMU. A lot of unknown on that defensive line. But if they can get back to where they were a season ago or approximate it, this SMU defense is going to be just fine in 2025. That'll do it for a Monday edition of Locked On SMU. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Be sure to check out Locked On's The Portal with Brian Smith for your second listen of the day. He'll keep you abreast on all the information in the changing world of college football. Until then, we will talk to you tomorrow. Take it easy, everybody.